My friends, what is going on? Welcome to the show. Come in, please. No, everybody, no, stop. Slow, one at a time. Oh, God. My friends, I'm super excited to have you here. What is going on, Martha? How are you, my friend? Always good to see your face, friend. My friends, let me know where are you calling in from right now? What part of the country you're in? If I sound good to you, let me know. I always got to check the audio. If I sound good to you, smash a like button, smash a heart button, whatever platform you're listening on right now. And let me know that it sounds okay to you, please. And as always, let me know where you are calling in from. We have a cool show tonight. My friend Christina is joining me in the diner in just a little bit. So my friends, again, as you come in, let me know where you're calling in from. Martha, thank you again for being here, friend. I really appreciate it. I like when you're here. What's going on? Fantastic Florida. There you go. And I sound fantastic. Go on. I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. What's up, Miranda? How we feeling? Northern Colorado. Oh, shoot. We got some Christina fans already pouring into the house. Northern Colorado. Is it the other UNC? I don't know if you're involved in the university system, but if not, you're just in a stunning part of the country. Either way, you're winning. My friends, I'm excited to get this show cooking. So let's do just that. I nailed it. Thanks, Miranda. Appreciate it, friend. I'm excited. All right, my friends. What's going on, Scott? Good to see you, brother. Late night eats all day, baby. Let's go. Some Juicy Lucy's up here. My fellow Minnesotan, Scott. I'm not really a Minnesotan, but I'm starting to claim it, which is weird. All right. All right, my friends, let us get this show going. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Diner Talks with James. I'm James. Super excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for coming in. I decided to wear a purple shirt because your boy stays on brand out here. Really excited to have you. We got a really amazing guest. Her name is Christina. I'm going to introduce you to you in just a little bit. But first, y'all, it's Diner Talks with James. We got to start the show off right with tonight's top three. Let's get it going right now, my friends. As always, if you have something that you would like me to rank in my top three, put it in the comments, my friends. Let's talk about it. First off, I went to Trader Joe's yesterday. Here are three things I immediately regretted buying. All right, number one, a whole bag of Brazilian cheese bread balls, aka pão de queijo. My friends, I need more things stuffed with cheese in my life. Like I need more things stuffed with cheese in my life. They're delicious. All right, next, a huge box of fruity gummies. Not like one of the guilty pleasure packets of like Swedish fish. No, I'm talking like a tub o gummy. I didn't need that, y'all. And last but not least, I also bought an extremely large trough of Trader Joe's dark chocolate peanut butter cups. Have you ever had these peanut butter cups from Trader Joe's, y'all? They're a problem. Why did I do that to myself? Up next, Christina Parle is from Kansas City, Kansas in general, in the area. And so I love Kansas City, one of my favorite towns in the country. I think one of the most underrated cities in our fine country here. And particularly, I love Kansas City for the stereotypical reason of barbecue. Y'all, I go hard with barbecue. Last week, I told you that when I first went to school down south, coming from New York, that I just thought barbecue was a couple of men standing around a grill, flipping burgers and insulting the people around them, because that's what barbecue was in my household. But what I've since learned is that barbecue involves a sexy smoker and some slow cooking and some fatty meat, y'all. AKA my brand. Here we go. My top three favorite barbecue places in Kansas City that you need to try. First off, Jack Stack. Get the beef rib. It's worth your time. Next, this one's on the KC side, not the KC. This is on the Kansas side of KC. It's called Slaps Barbecue. Some of the best ribs I've ever had. It's a hole-in-the-wall joint, aka it's amazing. We know that the best restaurants in the country are the ones that look like they're falling over. The only thing that's holding them up is grandma's love and fat. So, and last but not least, the best, my favorite barbecue spot in Kansas City is Q39. I'm telling the burn ends. slap your mama good, my friends. Slap your mama good. Last but not least, top three. Three things that are annoying that I do that I really need to stop doing and finally get it together. You know I like a long title. All right, first off, I need to start opening mail when I get it. It turns out bills don't pay themselves if they just stay in a pile. Anyway, my credit score is finally back. But number two, I need to start clipping my toenails more. Y'all, I'm 6'4". It's a long way down there. It's just like it's a long distance. Okay. I don't want to go down there. All right, fine. I'll do it more. My socks will thank me. All right. Last but not least, I bite the shit out of every pen I ever come in contact with. Can you see this? Is this going to focus up? I don't even know if it's going to focus. It's probably not because I'm too handsome. But I bite the crap. This is one of those pens that's supposed to have like the little stylus on the end of it. I just bit the stylus off. Why can't I have nice things? I have a buddy of mine named Mike who carries around a Mont Blanc, as you can tell I'm French, a Mont Blanc pen. Cost him about $2,000, which is absurd. I couldn't buy it because that would be a $2,000 snack. My friends, I got to grow up. That's tonight's top three. If y'all ready for tonight's guest, let me hear you say something. And by hear you say something, I mean, let me hear the deafening silence of the internet. There it is. Great. All right, friends. Tonight's guest is Christina Parle. That's Christina. Don't you dare call me Parle. Okay. I successfully have been her friend for a number of years. And I learned how to say her name about 3 months ago because my friendship with her matters. So I'm super excited to have her on the show. She is a language enthusiast. What does that mean? Don't know. We're going to talk to her about it, but I'm excited about it. It seems intriguing. But also, she is just a badass woman. She works in higher education, developing young minds, getting them to think the right things, and making sure that individuals are having conversations that matter, that are putting the movements at the forefront that are happening in this country so that change can actually happen. She's an exceptional woman. She's also a phenomenal speaker, but she just got started, and I'm pumped to talk to her about what does it feel like to start a brand new business. My friends, can you do me a favor? Can you clap it out right now for the one, the only, Christina Parle?
Oh my gosh, this has been an amazing listening to the beginning of your thing. And you're talking about barbecue, and I didn't know you were going to talk about barbecue.
Well, so. You gotta throw some surprises in here now. Now, are you born and raised in Kansas or in Missouri or in KC? What's going on? The town's confusing.
Yeah, great question. So Kansas City, Kansas, sorry to those who I'm going to offend, is not where it's at. Oof. So I was born in Kansas City, Missouri, and lived in the city for about 7 years and then moved to the burbs. And then I live here again. So I just bought a house in Kansas City about a year ago. So,
look at you.
Yeah.
You're grown.
Grown up. So grown up.
I love it. Yeah. The Kansas side of KC really gets no love, even though that's the only state in the actual name. That's the only love it gets.
Yeah.
But that's fair. I'll actually agree with you. Pretty much 95% of the cool things are happening on the Missouri side.
Yeah.
So shout out to Missouri for that reason. Are you a barbecue person, Christina?
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. So when you started talking about it, I was like, he better not say something wrong or I'm going to hang up.
Okay. How did I do?
I mean, yeah, you didn't get like my top ones, but it was better than some of the other options that you could have said.
Well, I'm nothing if I'm not a 6. You know what I mean? Like I'm out here, a solid 6 is what I shoot for every day out of 10. What are your top barbecue spots in KC?
Rosedale's is my favorite barbecue place.
Okay.
There's one singular one. It's down on Southwest Boulevard or Traffic Way. I might be messing that up. But it is little hole in the wall, kind of. Been there since 1934. And it is my favorite place. Look, I see the people in the comments, the people who know me are like, don't mess this up, Christina. But that's my favorite place. I also love a place called LC's. But then I'd have to agree with you. Like Jack Stacks, Q39, those are probably tied for third.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You probably haven't, based on a previous comment, you probably haven't been to Slaps because it's on the Kansas side.
So I see it. And I drive by it. But maybe I'll stop now that you've said what you've said about it.
I mean, the ribs are worth a pit stop. That's all I'm going to say. That's fair. That's fair. Well, I'm glad to hear. Now, most people think barbecue is about the sides. I can kind of agree with that. The sides are the jump, but what are your favorite sides when it comes to barbecue? Are you mac and cheese in it? Are you getting some collards? Are you doing what are you beans with brisket in it? What's your move?
Yeah, baked beans for sure. Yep. It's a typical move. Fries or mac and cheese, but not everybody really does mac and cheese well.
No, they do not.
Yeah, I tend to shy away from it. Some green beans, collard greens are good, but baked beans are definitely like a go-to staple.
I've been known to double bean myself. I've been known to bake bean and green beans sometimes. I really just put green on my plate when I travel to make my mom happy.
Right.
So
it's appropriate. Very appropriate.
I love it, friend. I'm so excited that you're here. You and I have shared a number of late night meals when I have called you the day I flew into Kansas City and said, hey, what are you doing in 7 hours? I'm free. Just clear your schedule, please, with no prior warning. But thank you for always doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like, and it's funny because we've shared a couple of meals in different cities when I've lived in different places. So it's always been dope to connect.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We got some people like coleslaw and baked beans together. I don't know if I'd fly with that, but I respect Martha. I respect that you got something that you like. So Christina, this is a super exciting time for you. Because you are kind of at the precipice of a new business adventure. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're cooking?
Yeah, for sure. So, well, James, you're probably like the second person that I told in 2016, like, hey, I think I want to do this. I think I want to speak. I think I want to consult. And at the time, that was really all about language and the impact of language. I literally just talked to my homegirl this morning about like, hey, remember the time like in 2016 when I walked you through this language program that I didn't do for the first time until 2020. So it really started all around that. And I think that's where the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion really grew from for me. And so DEI work is what I'm doing, speaking, consulting, developing curriculum, and working typically with nonprofit organizations, fraternities, sororities, but also like those kinds of organizations adjacent. And so really whoever is willing to listen. But I think what's particularly important and why I care so much about language is I believe a lot of times we like to jump to diversity, equity, and inclusion concepts that are high, complex, cultural appropriation, all of these kind of big, complex issues. And we don't know anything about identity. We don't know anything about the concepts of power and privilege. We haven't done that foundational work. Our houses are literally falling down all over because nobody built the foundation for them. And so the way I approach diversity, equity, and inclusion work is from a foundational standpoint. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We're going to dive into the what of what you were doing in just a little bit, because that certainly deserves time, and I want to talk to you about it. But I'm curious to see right now, what do you think? You said you had this idea in 2016, and how many times have we all had an idea? Like, it'd be cool if I did the thing, or you see somebody doing it, like I could probably do that, or whatnot. And so, but not as many people go from I got an idea to I'm doing the idea. What do you think sparked that action in you? Like, where did you find that, let's call it grit, right? Or something like that, to actually get it done and put yourself out there?
Well, it took me 4 years. So it probably took a little bit longer than it should have. Honestly, and James, you know this probably better than most. I was in my first job out of grad school for 365 days. And then
No
I
more, no
was,
less.
yeah, no more, no less. And then I was in my second job for about a year and a half, both for leaving for personal reasons and like my mental health and trying to be great. And that space
Yeah.
wasn't going to allow me to be great. And so it felt like there were a lot of roadblocks. Like I just, it was never going to come to fruition because I kept doing the like, well, when I get stable, when I get settled, when I get into a place, I can really like make it happen. But it was still something that I constantly talked about and constantly did all of the time, helping people think about language and correcting their language and doing all those kinds of things. And it wasn't until AFLV, the Association for Fraternal Leadership and Values, came around, I felt a little bit more settled. And I was like, well, I guess I should just submit a proposal because if they accept me, then I have to do it. So
everybody loved the deadline.
literally. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I submitted and thankfully I was accepted. And I went and I did the program and it happened. And I think it's not so much about like the grit piece as this topic was going to continue to be a part of who I was and what I cared about, regardless of if I was going to get to do it in front of people. And so it was still like a piece of my everyday life. And so it just always felt natural to do that. And I think I've known for a little while that I want to be an educator and I want to do it in that way. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it came from for me.
That's awesome. That's so cool that you were just like, you know what, screw it. Here we go. I'm gonna put it out there that this is something that I think other people need to hear. And I think they need to hear it from me, which is such a beautiful moment because that is a really easy place for us to talk ourselves out of it. And it's like well, why me? Right? Like what have I done that is special? I don't have 3 letters behind my name. I don't have a doctorate. I don't have, many leather bound books. I don't have like all these accolades of years of experience or tenure or whatever. But having the courage to say, no, I think the way that I teach this matters. And I think I can teach it in a way. And this is what's so great about you is that like you mentioned, you teach things in a very foundational approach. And so you're kind of a term that I learned recently that I've also been called in the diversity equity space is you're kind of an on-ramper, right? Where you're exceptional at making people get onto the highway and into just getting them into the party. Right. So much of what is happening this year in particular, there's so many people that's like, we need to start the conversation. No, we got to start the conversation. No, we know the conversation has been happening for quite some time, but welcome to the conversation, right? You need to start your role in the conversation. And that is something that you are so good at doing. And you do it in this amazing challenge and support, classic higher education type of way, because you don't take any bullshit, right? But at the same time, you allow grace for learning. And that's such a delicate tightrope, right? We know all we need to do is look on Facebook for 5 minutes to see 800 examples of people who don't know how to walk that line, right? Like every single Facebook comment thread is people yelling at each other and calling each other names or cancel culture is not working, right? Like, and so, but for you, you have found that delicacy matters in the way that you approach it. Would you say that was something that you learned to do? Is that something you've always kind of done, or did you step in it first and then be like, okay, clearly that's not going to work? Like what happened with you?
Well, likely my mother is on, and so she would be laughing at this question. She probably is. When I went to grad school, I started to have a lot of identity development happening really fast, like really accelerated. Partially because I went to Penn State, and Penn State. Partially because I went there and there was stuff happening there that like I just didn't experience before in my life. And so a lot, but see, Christina Parle, that's her. So when I was in grad school, I was having this accelerated identity experience. And then from there, it became like an arms race to like figure everything out and learn all the things that I could. And then when I left grad school, I think I had learned so much that I had forgotten who I was before and where I came from, and all of the really ignorant and shitty stuff that I had known and believed throughout my life. And so I fought a lot with people. And I think I learned that that has gotten me nowhere. And I did a lot of that fighting with my mom and with family and with friends and people that I cared about. And it just wasn't particularly successful. And so I probably fought that fight for a good 2 years. And then I think I started to learn how to talk to people and how to have conversations with people. And I started to pick up on the fact that telling people, lecturing people, monologuing people is not how it works. That probably also was learned because I worked in student conduct, where you can't just sit around and force people to get it. Yeah. You've got to engage them in conversation and dialogue to help them understand and to help them want to change their behavior. And so now when I teach, I always say, don't give them all the answers. Ask questions that put the ball back in their court to do the unlearning about the problematic, harmful thing that they've done or said. So I think, I spent a lot of time pissing people off and pissed off, right? So I think that's where I've gotten to now.
Let's dig. I mean, when in doubt, poke the bear. So tell me more about that anger. Like what sparked that anger? Was that something that were you angry prior to schooling? Like you kind of mentioned a lot of that stuff came up in schooling. Were you angry growing up as well at some of the atrocities that you were seeing around you? Or like when did you first, when did your eyes open up and be like, hang on a second, this isn't right. And I don't think I feel good about it. Was there a moment where that happened? And it doesn't matter when it happened. I'm just curious if it did.
Well, so it's kind of twofold. I think the anger that I was experiencing was because I didn't understand why other people didn't get it. But that came from such a place of privilege because not everybody got to sit in the same classroom that I was able to sit in for 2 years. To hear the stories, to dialogue, to have, the experiences that I got to have for 2 years that I was very privileged to have. And so I think I was more pissed off that people didn't get it, not thinking about like, Christina, you just got to have this really like bubble-like experience.
Yeah.
But I will say, I graduated college and that summer Michael Brown died. And so I had a lot of falling outs with people in my life because of Michael Brown's death and people not understanding why it was so egregious. And so I walked into Penn State on fire. Really,
I'm here.
Really, I was ready to go. And so I think I just carried that fire with me. I one of my mentees started a higher ed program. And I said to her, what is most important to me is that you make it through that stage of development where you're angry and where all you can see is this identity and why it pisses you off and why you're so mad. Because we all go through that. I think as you go through developing your own identity, particularly marginalized identities, your eyes are open to how ugly this world is in a lot of ways, and you're just angry. And so I asked my mentee, I said, please come out of that place because we've got to have people who are have the knowledge to be able to help others grow. So,
yeah, for sure. I love that. I love that. And I think what you just said is so powerful about that idea of like, I hope that you get through the angry phase because true teaching is on the other side of anger, right? We cannot teach if we are super angry. It's just like, we can't We can't love if we're super hurt. We can't, like, there's some of these major emotions that you have to be able to name and work through and sit in the fire before you can get to the other side to be able to talk. And that was really beautifully put. So let's back up a little bit, even a little bit further. Now, it's fun because you and I are both biracial. I'm white and more white. No,
super duper white.
Super duper white. No, I'm not biracial in any way, stretch of them. I'm Irish and Italian, both very white. But you identify, and you told me this on a call recently. You identify as Black and biracial.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. The way that you identify. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So, in a world that calls people mixed, I try to be really intentional about my language and calling myself biracial. So one, I call myself Black biracial simply because I think the world sees me as Black in a lot of ways, especially since I've cut my hair. A whole nother conversation, but especially
since it's incredible though.
Yes,
the hair is fire.
So I literally contemplated today. I'm like, should I go to the barber shop? Like, no, let's just rock it the way it is. But
can I have a quick moment of shame that I fully anticipate you judging me for, and you should. When I first got to college, my freshman year, New Yorker, went to school in North Carolina. There was an RA in the apartments. His name was Phil, and Phil was of Jewish descent, and he was also a huge stoner. And so Phil would walk around with this huge fro with a pick in it. He was very white also. And I was like, yo, that would be so cool to have a fro. And so I went and bought a pick and started to work on it. But this greasy Italian hair was not ascending. And that's when I learned that people have different hair at the age of 18. Okay. Sorry, Christina.
No, oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people aspire to have fro hair without actually understanding what it takes. I got lots of comments about hair stuff, but so I identify as Black first because I think the world sees me as Black, right? And like I said, particularly since I cut my hair, I think that has increased. And so, but I of course identify as biracial because my mother is white and my biological father is Black. And so that for me is so important to also capture. So for instance, Kamala Harris, right? Barack Obama, all being called Black folks in the media because people think that's cool. Like, and it is, it's super dope. We're super excited. And also I hate that biracial identity of theirs is being erased. Like most people don't even know that Kamala Harris is half South Asian, right? Her mother is Indian. And so a lot of people erase people's biracialness. That's not a word, but I'm making it. And so I think that is so important. And I use biracial instead of mixed because words matter. And mixed is really probably language that we use for like a drink or a dog, being mixed breed or a mixed drink. And so really the concept is that I am of two races. And so, if I was of more, it would be multiracial, those kinds of things. So that's why I would say that.
Yeah, for sure. So growing up, you said that your mother is white, right? And your father is Black. And so, but growing up biracial, I can imagine, because I can't do anything else. I can imagine it's got it. Like there had to be times where you were also you probably got asked a lot of inappropriate questions that weren't asked harmfully or within the intent of harm, but did you get a lot of what are yous? Things like that? I mean, because there's also parts of your skin tone that could very easily be of the Latinx descent, right? Or maybe even Persian, right? Like I can see all of that within your beautiful skin. But so that had to be an interesting thing for you. Did you experience some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think majority of my life, people have thought that I was Latinx, like
Mhm.
almost solely. Like this January, I had an individual who was of Latin descent speaking Spanish to me. And when I was like, "Oh, sorry, I don't speak Spanish," they were literally like, "You're kidding." And I was like,
Why are you
"Well,
lying to me?
I'm not joking." And then, so my stepfather, who raised me, is actually St. Lucian and Trinidadian. And when we went to St. Lucia, they thought I was St. Lucian. You know, I mean, I've always experienced being all different types of things. You know, you're so exotic, blah, blah, blah. Like, some really, like you said, unintentionally harmful stuff. I think the reason why I got so into language, and I intentionally call myself an enthusiast instead of an expert. James, you know, I struggle with this complex of
Yeah,
like,
for sure. Yeah.
I don't have a doctorate. I didn't do a whole bunch of research. So I'm an enthusiast. And that actually, I think, for me, comes from sitting in a class for my grad program and talking about asking people about their race and talking about how harmful it is to say, "What are you?" And one of my peers turning around to me and saying, "Okay, well then how do we ask?" And in that moment, I was like, just say, like, "How do you identify racially?" Or "How do you racially identify?" And for people to be like, "Oh, yeah." And in that moment, I'm like, whoa, like, one, why haven't you thought about this?
Yeah.
But then two, like, you're listening to me. Like, you heard me when I said that. And like,
Yeah.
it made you think. And so then there was this level of like, well, maybe I could do this more, right? Like, maybe I could help people understand why their language is problematic. And honestly, why language upholds some of the systems that we live in, right?
Mhm.
I talk a lot with Panhellenic sorority women about calling each other girls or saying the future is female. And we talk about how problematic some of that stuff is. So I think, you know, that's so important to me, and how you ask people and talk about those things for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you bring something really powerful up. Which is right now in our country is a moment of learning for so many people, right? I've had some incredible conversations with my parents and brothers and even my nephews, like my 10-year-old nephew. Tina and I ran we ran a campaign and we raised a bunch of money for the Black Lives Matter movement and associated like the Loveland Foundation and some other things and whatnot. But the coolest one that we got was from my nephew who's 12 years old. And he said, "I saw your story on Instagram and I thought it was terrible what happened, what the police did to George Floyd. And I think it's what you're doing is really important. And so I want to donate my lawn mowing money from the week to your campaign." And it was just so sweet, right? But like, what a moment to be learning. Right. I mean,
Mhm.
I've said on here before that I learned that I was white when I was 19. Right. And I learned, or by that, I mean, I learned why it mattered that I was white when I was 19.
Sure.
And so the fact that a 12-year-old, his brother is 10, is thinking about the world and what is happening and injustice 10 years before, right? That's 10 years less unlearning that he has to do in order to
Correct.
relearn. And so it's really powerful what is happening right now in the country. And so, but there are so many people, I myself have definitely fallen into this as well, where the fear of asking the question
Mm.
stops me from asking the question. The fear that the question could potentially be offensive is what makes me pause from time to time. And I've gotten a lot better at that. And I've also learned the art of the preface. But still, you know, as you go around and teach individuals, how do you teach them to get over that fear?
Mm.
Because the learning on the other side of the fear matters.
Oh, such a good question. First and foremost, I think I tell people like, why are you asking? Like, answer that question first.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just asking because you're curious or it feels new and different and weird to you, right? Like when you look at me, if you're like, oh, I just really want to know what she is.
Yeah.
Maybe don't ask the question. Like maybe get to know me a little bit first and allow that to organically be a part of the conversation. But if you're just like, I want to dip in and dip out on, but I just want to know this one thing because I'm a little curious. I want to put you into a box so it will make sense to my brain.
Yeah.
Maybe like save that question for later.
Yeah, right. It's like the cliche guy at the bar. So we gonna make out? Oh no?
Nah.
All right, cool. I'm gonna go over here then.
All right, bye.
Right? Like, all right, I just wanted that information. I'm gonna leave.
Yes, and so it's like one of those things of like, I mean, if it's really only transactional, if it's really only standing for you to gain something and really not much at all, maybe don't ask it. I tell people also to use their non-people resources first. What can you find out elsewhere? Or what can you find out from the humans that you know that maybe don't hold the identity of this other person first, right? Like what other resources can you tap into that maybe aren't this human? But then the next thing is like, if you're going to ask it, be prepared for the backlash and be prepared to apologize and to be better next time. And I teach people when we're talking about apologizing, it should be quick to the point and move on. Don't burden the person that you just harmed with making you feel better. The person that says, I'm just so sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry that I did this. I didn't mean it that way. Chill, right? Like just say, I'm sorry, I'm gonna move on, or I'm gonna commit to being better or whatever. I'll never forget misgendering someone actually quite recently, because we all step in it. We're all going to screw up. None of us are perfect when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion.
I love that phrase. We're all going to step in it. That's so good, Christina.
It's so important, like, because here's the reality, right? Like I do this work day in, day out, have this conversation all the time. And I mess up all the time, right? Like, because these aren't skills that we've been taught since we were a kid.
Yeah.
These aren't skills that are being modeled for us in other places. We are learning and unlearning so rapidly that our implicit bias, our brain is making shortcuts all over that mess us up, right? And so I was recently with a new human that I had met. And so I was new to them, right? They were new to me, and they used they, them, their. And I kept using he, him, his, because my implicit bias looked at this person and thought they look masculine. And so my brain could not turn off that direct, like, mental association that my brain was making. And so I finally just walked up. The tag of their shirt was sticking out. I tucked it in and I said, I'm sorry for using the wrong pronouns. And they were literally like, you're Gucci. And we just moved on, right? And I didn't need to make a scene. And I didn't need them to know how terribly sorry I was. It didn't need to be about me in that moment, but they did need to know that I knew and recognized it and was going to apologize for it. So I don't even know if that answered your original question, because I kind of got off into a bunch of different tangents, but yeah.
Nah, you're good. I think what you just said was really powerful, because the emotion of remorse is not one that we need to feel a lot. Like there are things that we can just simply feel sorry for and then keep it moving, right? Like, hey, I said this little thing, but like a lot of us, especially when we know around sensitive topics and when we are in the process of recognizing that maybe we need to change, or we have stepped in it, to use your language, right? Like that's like this moment of like, I need to apologize, and your apology turns into remorse, and then everybody's uncomfortable, right? Like for example, in a very different part of the world, I don't drink. I drink every once in a while. Like I can count the amount of glasses of alcohol that I've had this summer probably on one hand, right? And so I don't really drink. And so whenever people find out that I don't drink, it's a big deal to them. Like it's just this unnecessary big deal, but that's fine, whatever. But my least favorite drunk person is the apologizer. Is the person who the whole time is just like, oh my God, you probably think I'm a terrible person. You probably, James, don't judge me. And like, unfortunately, like that's just not the moment for me to be like, maybe you're projecting right now, right?
Yeah,
Because they're like drunk, and but still, it's that moment of there is a time where you apologize so much that I think you are apologizing more about how you want me to see you than that
correct.
you haven't actually learned anything, right?
Correct.
Like you're trying to back out of the situation, but all I need you to do is have acknowledgement that the moment happened, adjust the
Mhm.
behavior, right? And whatnot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think I was just I was in a class and they were talking about what are things you can forgive and what are things that you can't forgive. And I talked about things that I can forgive is somebody doing something wrong and then changing their behavior. What I can't forgive is somebody doing something wrong and maybe apologizing for it and then just continuing to do it over and over again. It's like, what is happening? And typically people who overly, profusely apologize probably going to do it again pretty quickly because like you said they're more focused on what's in it for them and making them feel whole and better than about the harm that they've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Would you rather have somebody apologize a whole bunch to you, or stay kind of where they are in their decision, even if you don't agree with it?
So
Which one's better? For example,
okay,
right?
I'm ready.
Like Jerry Jones, famous owner of the Dallas Cowboys,
Mhm.
is historically a fairly racist man,
Yeah.
and not winning any medals for that. But still, he is. So in this time where the NFL and obviously all pro sports are really trying to be on the right side of history, football always lagging. But in hearing Jerry Jones talk, he is so careful with trying to walk this fine line between I don't want to piss all of my players off, but I also don't want to piss my base off. Right. Like I don't want to piss all them off. And so he is walking this fine line where he says things like, I think the players have learned a lot in the off season. And it's
Mhm.
like, well, what, did you learn anything? Right. Like, and this is straight out of a show called PTI, where he was called out for a similar thing. And so this is me just regurgitating some of that information from that show. But like, it was just that moment made me think about our conversation and like, which one's worse? Like at some point, if you are rocking, if you're rocking your MAGA hat and you are out here doing it, and this is exactly what you believe, there is something to be said for clarity, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
even though I disagree with it personally, there's something to be said for it's like at least I know what I'm getting with, right? Like just look at like the way the country's handling the coronavirus, right? The way the country's handling the coronavirus is so ambiguous and no one can make any plans and everybody's pissed off. Versus if we just set something and just said, you know what? We're not doing shit until 2021, lock it down. Everybody be like, okay, I can plan.
that's clear, right?
Um,
Mhm.
and so there's something to be said for clarity. But I don't know who pisses me off more.
Mm, yeah, I mean, gosh, yes. If you're going to be a racist, I'd love to know that
Sure.
so I could stay away from it. Yeah, so I absolutely agree that that's probably the better of the two for everyone involved. So nobody's coming into contact and being harmed. Um, I think the person who constantly says, like, well, I didn't mean it that way. So, I'm sorry that you feel that way is a pretty terrible person.
Yeah.
Because I think that they don't realize that, their intent doesn't negate their impact, right? Like it doesn't, in when I'm doing education, I don't say this, but your intentions don't mean shit, right? Like at the end of the day, it's great that you didn't intend to hurt me. Let me give you a great example. I was at the doctor's office. Nurse comes in. Nurse presents kind of femininely, right? So I'm just assuming things about her already because of my implicit bias. And she's like, are you pregnant? And I was like, no, thank God. And in that moment, I thought to myself, oh gosh, Christina, like you should have thought before you said that, because who knows? This human might struggle with infertility. This person might have humans in their life who struggles with infertility. And so I think the reality is that some people don't care about that. They don't care about how something may impact or affect other people. And in that moment, I had to come to terms with, I didn't intend to like be hurtful, but maybe I might have, I don't know. And I won't know because I didn't ask the human, right? But the reality is I could have done some real harm there, re-traumatizing people, all of those kinds of things, because I don't want kids, right? Like, and so we have to create a space where all humans can exist. And understand again that our intent is a big part of what's going on, but it's never as big as the way it lands on somebody else. And that's, to be clear, why our words are so important, because words are not retractable. Once they are out there, they are out there. And you don't get to decide how they make others feel. A lot of people will say, well, words only matter if you give them power. Like, come on. We don't get to determine power for other people because we were all raised different. We have all had different lives. Like we can't say that about others. So yeah, I mean, I think that's incredibly important.
I think that is incredibly powerful and beautiful with how you just said it. I think that, I mean, this quote right here, right? Your intent will never negate your impact, is so important for people to remember. And it's something that I know that I have, I've struggled with because I have my Achilles heel is that I want people to like me. Right. And that's just something that's like, I want to be a likable guy. I don't want to know that I caused hurt or I caused harm or anything like that. I think that's one of the things that when I went through my divorce a handful of years ago, the hardest part of it for me was knowing that I had the capability of hurting somebody that much. Right. Like that was the worst thing. And so obviously it was never my intention or any of that kind of stuff. But coming back to this quote is super powerful, that your intent will never negate your impact. I love that. I want to go a little bit deeper into some of that with you here, Christina, if that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, not these two again over here. Okay, all right, break it up, you two. Enough of this here now. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. You're not smiling now, are you? Okay, apparently somebody thinks we should break it up a little. We're getting a little bit too deep in here. Let's break it up here. Let's do a segment. Let's do a segment. Why not? The segment of this show that we're going to do is called Things That You Didn't Know About Me That You Didn't Know You Wanted To. Please note, the name of this segment changes every time I do the show. Christina, what we're going to do is we are going to share some random facts about us. So just some random things about you. I can go first. As always, role model the way. What can I say? I'm a great man. But no. So I'll go first, and I'm curious to learn some random things about you, my friend. Let's jump in.
Okay.
So, fun fact about me, I used to collect collections. What that means is that I used to pride myself on how many collections I had. None of the collections were worth anything or meant anything, but there was at one point in my life where I collected business cards. Now I was in middle school, no business collecting business cards. Business cards, those flyers from hotels of like local attractions, bookmarks, stickers, keychains, baseball cards, basketball cards, Ren and Stimpy magazines, comics, and stuffed animals, and probably some others.
Okay.
All for the sake of collecting collections and postcards. So postcards as well.
Okay. I mean, that seems a little bit more traditional.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. There we go. That one saved me. Perfect.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You slid that in right at the end. Okay, I'll go on the same avenue that you're going here. I do collect still movie stub tickets when I go and see a movie. And so it really is upsetting when myself or others buy them electronically. It doesn't really work so much for the collecting business. So yeah.
So wait, so where do you keep these movie stubs? Do you have an intent of doing anything with them?
Okay, hold on. I'm going to show you.
Oh,
Like
here we go.
right,
You want me to? Here we
like
go. Let me
right
do
over
this.
here. Yes. Okay. Right over here
Mhm.
in one of these little corners is a little wicker basket, and I keep all of my movie stubs in there. I've probably moved some of them because there's so many. I think the oldest one that I remember having is from 2004.
Wow, what movie was that?
Unclear at this time.
Great, it's faded.
Yeah, that has since left my brain, and I'm not sure.
Great, clearly the best movie you've ever seen.
100%.
I love that. Do you have a favorite movie or a couple of movies?
Oh gosh. Okay. Depends on the genre, but usually I would say Remember the Titans. But now that they have made Hamilton right into a visual, it's definitely a second. But the fascinating thing about both of those things is that I don't like Disney, and both of those movies were created by Disney. So when people want to talk about Disney, those are the things that I want to talk about. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. Scott brings up a really good point here. I can't stand that most like concerts you go to, you no longer get the ticket stubs and stuff like that.
Correct.
Right. And like I have the MLB app for when I go to baseball games. I still collect all of the sporting events or music concert tickets I go to, but I don't print them out now. I don't need 8.5 by 11s. Like that's just not the same character. Gosh darn it. Back in my day. I love that. You collect movie stubs. That's super random. Okay. Another fun fact about me.
Okay.
I once had a 3-hour conversation with a stripper and a conservative man. Those are two different people. Good
to know.
A stripper and a female stripper and a conservative man in Waffle House in North Carolina. And it was one of the most fascinating conversations I have ever had in my life. And it was incredible.
Okay. What was your biggest key takeaway?
Biggest takeaway, I think I did not understand, and I think the country still doesn't understand. I think it took me a while. I don't know. This is when I started to think about it differently, was that sex work is real work. Right. And that, making a living, doing what you got to do. There's no shame in it. It is a choice. They are protected. I think right now sex workers got the opportunity to unionize in this country. I believe. I think it's a new thing, which is great. But just learning the story of this woman was fascinating. She was also someone who was a fellow student with me. So she was a friend. I knew her before she was a stripper. But it was just so fascinating to be able to have that conversation with her about what it's like and the people that she got to interact with behind the scenes. Right. And just hearing other stories and whatnot. I think that was one of the biggest takeaways was about that industry that I definitely before, just because of popular opinion and natural bias that has been taught to me by society, judged. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. This is a weird one, so prepare yourself.
I'm here.
So I eat a lot of sunflower seeds. That probably could have just been the fact, actually. I could have just said, I eat sunflower seeds like they're going out of style.
Can you hang on? We're going to pause you right there. Because sunflower seeds, I am garbage at eating. Like I'm swallowing 50% of the shells. It's like, I don't understand people who can just like, I have a buddy of mine who's able to keep a stash in one and then he like brings one over, can like split it, gets the seed out thing. I mean, like, I don't, it sounds like, a line, whatchamacallit line that like Henry Ford would have been proud of, with the way that this guy goes through sunflower seeds. Are you proficient with your sunflower seeds?
What is above proficient? Like, what do you think is like the next, like I'm an expert?
Professional. Yeah. Expert.
Whoa, yeah. Oh yeah. Professional.
Oh, now she calls herself an expert. Okay. Christina.
In sunflower seeds, faux show. I wouldn't be really great in many competitions, but a sunflower seed eating competition, I think I could definitely compete with like MLB players for sure.
Wow.
For sure.
Wow. Okay. There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so please continue. So, thank you for letting me cut you off because that's
So-
something I'm ashamed of.
I don't even know where we were at, James. What were we even talking about?
You were going to tell me your fun story about eating sunflower seeds.
Okay, let me think.
We were telling things that people didn't need to know about us, but now we're grateful if they did.
Okay. Yep. I'm back. I'm with you. I'm here.
Okay, great.
Typically, when I eat sunflower seeds, I'm going to eat them on 3 on one side, 1 in the middle, and 3 on the other. So my favorite number is 3 or 21, both divisible by 3. And so a lot of small foods like that, but particularly sunflower seeds, I eat in 3s. So
you eat them in 3. So what's your process? Tell me. I mean, you got 3 on one side, 3 on the other. Just tell, like, what's going on here? Walk me through it. You're a professional. Tell me the deal.
Okay, so I have a large bag. That's step 1. I'm typically buying them by the 2 or 3 bags. And the pound bags.
Flavored or just au natural?
Okay, because of how quickly I eat them, the flavor tends to get messy. So I have a bag. I grab a handful. I throw them in my mouth. I shift them to one side, and then I try to take off as much of the salt as I can, because my mouth is like completely raw by the end of a day. And then I move 3 over. Chew those, spit them out, put 1 in the middle, chew that, spit it out, and then put 3 on the other side, chew those and spit them out. And I do not chew the seeds. I think that's very detrimental to your health. So
you don't chew the seeds or the shells?
I don't ingest. Oh, sorry, the shells.
I was like, you're just like, are you just birding, just like gulping these like pills? Take that.
No, definitely not the shells. I think that's very detrimental to the internal organs.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine that would be good. Yeah, I feel like my esophagus would be ripped up. Incredible fun fact. When did you first become passionate about sunflower seeds?
Well, it was definitely college time, maybe even sooner.
Okay.
And all of these people who are messaging about my sunflower seeding eating is making me feel like it's not as much of a secret as I thought it was.
I think it's backing up your professionalism, and that's all you need to worry about.
100%. I ain't worried about it. I'm going to keep it on. But probably sometime, maybe high school, maybe college, but there was a time where for Christmas, which to be clear, I don't really like to celebrate holidays anymore, but when I was a celebrating human,
sure,
my mom had filled probably a life-size stocking, and it was full of bags of sunflower seeds, which I had probably finished in under a month. So it was probably sometime in college.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
This is passion right here.
Yeah.
I respect it. I
think one of them should hire me to definitely do their brand
or
video, cute little clip with sunflower seeds.
Are you brand loyal? What's that one, like Dave's? What's the one called?
Oh God, those are so bad. Oh no. Okay. So yes.
Let's get bougie about sunflower seeds real quick, fam.
Real quick with y'all. The red, white, and blue bag, whatever the ones you're talking about, so salt heavy, not good. But Dakota's in the yellow bag, Dakota style. That's what you're looking for. You can typically pick it up at your local grocery. The Walmarts or the Targets sometimes don't sell them.
Okay.
But your local grocery should have them.
Okay. Great. Good to know. I love everything about this moment. That's incredible. So yeah, now do you clean up after your shells, or are you leaving like solo cups all around and just like other people got to handle your stuff?
Are you asking that because my mother is making atrocious comments? No, it's kind of offensive that she said that, actually. So I wish my cup was in here. I typically have a large cup that I spit them into.
Yeah.
I always clean up after myself, but I live alone. So yeah, my cup's just sitting in my house, of course. Like, what do you mean? So yeah, no, I don't. What she would say is I dump a cup probably several times a day because I'm eating so many. So let me be clear. I backed off of sunflower seeds because my doctor was like, sis, you're not going to be well if you keep eating these seeds. And I said,
really?
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. My, like, whatever that's called was really high. It wasn't good. And so for years, I probably really kind of stopped eating them. But more recently, now that I have a full-time job and a side business, they help me focus.
Yeah.
And so I eat them more regularly now, but I do like a couple of bags and then I give myself a week off and then I do a couple more bags. I don't think you knew that half of this episode was going to be about sunflower seeds. I don't think you were prepared for that.
I didn't, but I'm so happy about it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're making sure your vitamin C levels are high.
See what you did there.
Oh! All right, y'all, that's the end of the show. End on a high note. I'm Jordan out here. I don't care. All right. I'm just kidding. That was incredible. I mean, you've seen me speak before. I start all of my speeches off with food quirks. Like, I love people's food quirks. And this is such a delightful one that I did not know about you. Apparently, I'm one of the later ones to learn, but doesn't matter. And I'm here for all of this right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to be on video calls with me regularly, you're going to learn that I eat seeds. So
you're out here.
That's why all these people are saying that.
Yeah, apparently. Well, happy to be late to the party, but still here and looking good, if you know what I mean. So that's what's up. That's what's up. So here's a question. You talked, we got your mother's listening right now, which is always special. What were you like as a child? What was young Christina like? Knowing where we are right now, we talked about the anger phase and stuff like that. Like, what was a young Christina like?
What age are we talking about?
Let's go middle school, just to pick a random one. You can start earlier or later if you'd like.
Angry. Mouthy, not much different than I am right now.
All right, great. Well, that was easy.
Yeah. Wrap that up, put a bow on it. It's pretty much how it was. Yeah. No, I mean, I was angsty as fuck. I mean, honestly, like I always had been. And my mom, I actually said to somebody the other day that my mom's the greatest gift to my life, right? But she let me live my life. Like, my mom was very good at doing you're disappointing me without saying that I actually disappointed her. So she was a talker. She talked me through everything. It wasn't like there was some big, huge trouble screaming. My mom was the type to be like, and so what did you do wrong? And why is that bad? Right? Like, she was just just going to talk you through everything. And so I think for real, like, I was angry and she allowed me to be, and I can only credit her in a lot of ways to why and where I am now. Yeah.
It's interesting that after you talk about the importance of getting through your anger phase, right? And because on the other side of your anger phase is where learning and listening happens, which happily dance together and need to. So would you credit your mother with teaching you how to listen, even though you didn't take the lesson or take the pills for a handful of years?
I don't know. My mom's a good listener.
Yeah.
But I think that's the way that I do it is probably something that I had to learn a little bit on my own. Because my mom is like me. She's probably a little bit more fiery even than I am in some ways, a lot more hardcore and able to do just about anything in the world. But yeah, I think I had to learn a lot of that in my own way. But I think most everything else is pretty much her. So
yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful. I'm glad you corrected me. And no, I really appreciate that. So, it's so interesting where we learn a lot of our lessons, and where a lot of that stuff comes from, and the ability to let people process is super powerful, as opposed to being like, look over here instead. Oh, hey, right. Instead, it's like, no, let's sit in it for a minute. And that is a skill that takes a while, because that's committing to the long game, right? Instead of the short, like, here's an iPad, shut up, right? Or something like that, which is no shame if every once in a while a parent needs to give a kid an iPad. I respect it. You do what you got to do in these streets, but still, that idea of committing to the learning and committing to making you name what you are feeling is powerful. Because during such an ambiguous time of growing up, to be able to have some clarity or be able to like, no, this is how I'm feeling, to be able to name those things, I think is really important. I was not able to name what it felt like to feel angry until I was like 32. Like at 32 is when I feel like I felt anger for the first time. And because I didn't know it. I didn't know it, or I never named it. I never thought about it. It wasn't until like I went through, like I actually started doing some meditating, and that's when like it kind of came up and all of that. And it was really important when I felt it. But yeah, I think that's super powerful that those moments happened for you.
Absolutely. I mean, I would credit it for why I am probably a pretty self-aware person. That I had a lot of external dialogue, I think, which taught me how to have internal dialogue with myself, and taught me how to process stuff a lot more and better in a lot of ways, and accountability. So, right, I do a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work, but accountability is like my passion area, in addition to, and I think that you have to be able to dialogue in order to hold people accountable, and for them to learn from that. So I think that's so wildly important.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What is it about accountability that, I mean, is that why you teach what you teach? Does it come back to like self-accountability, or like when did that become an important word in your life?
Well, the concept has been forever. I've had a really strange kind of trajectory. I always wanted to be a police officer, which in 2020, I'm very thankful. And in many other years, I'm thankful I didn't become a police officer for a lot of reasons. So I wanted to be a police officer growing up. And so I went to school for criminal justice. And so the concept of accountability has always been a part of who I am. But when I was 18, I took an intro to criminal justice class, and the teacher said, you either have to go on a ride along or you have to, I think, shadow like an attorney or something of that nature. And so I went on a ride along, right? Like that's what I wanted to do. And so I went on a ride along with KCPD, which is, for those who are on and don't know much about Kansas City is a pretty high crime city. And so we were in not really the inner city, but a little bit out south. And we went on a shoplifting call at the local Kmart. And so they were like, oh, you can get out. We're here all the time. Like, this is a regular place. I'm like, okay, great. What's happening? And so we get in there, and oh gosh. And so we're watching kind of what's going on. And the manager says, we're chit-chatting, talking up, whatever. And he's like, hey, do you want a job? And I was like, no, like I'm in college. I go to school 45 minutes away from here. Absolutely not. And 2 weeks later, I was a loss prevention agent, catching shoplifters at Kmart. And I caught shoplifters for about 3 years. And probably that experience is a lot of why I'm able to give people grace in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, because I saw and probably even did things that were rooted in a lot of terrible, horrible stuff about people. And so, either way, accountability was a part of my life from the jump, it feels like, especially in my adulthood. And then I wanted to be an attorney. And then I sat in front of a speaker, and this is probably why speaking is so incredibly important to me, but he said, you have to have a vision. You have to have a purpose. And I thought, wow, being an attorney is not that. And I was stupid involved on campus. And so I learned like everybody else. I was a first generation college student. So I learned like everybody else that higher ed was a job and I could work with students and whatever. And then I went off to grad school and I worked in student conduct. That was my graduate assistantship. And so accountability is what holds me together, holding myself accountable, holding others accountable, encouraging others to hold others accountable and themselves accountable. And so it's definitely the fabric of who I am for sure. And I think you can't do diversity, equity, and inclusion right without accountability. So,
yeah, I completely agree with you. First off, fascinating story. Had no idea. Such a cool job to randomly learn about. And you said such a powerful word, and I want to come back to it, and that's grace. Because you saw a whole lot in that job. Right. And there's a whole bunch of different individuals that were stealing for whatever reasons that they were stealing for. And so in developing grace, in those moments, I mean, how did you to go from someone who is, I don't know, before that, were you more of a black and white thinker? Like, did you know about the gray areas? Like in going into law enforcement, were you like, hey, I know this is going to be a nuanced field and I'm excited to bring some nuance to it? Or were you like, I'm excited to kind of just like make sure individuals know that they need to be held accountable to the laws that have been written? Like, what was that like for you?
I mean, James, I can't explain enough that the Christina that was 18 is wildly different than 28-year-old Christina who's here with you right now. And part of it is because I was raised, for better or for worse, in a really whitewashed world, right? And this isn't anybody's fault, but I was raised mostly by white folks. And even my stepfather, who's St. Lucian and Trinidadian, is darker than me, but he's an immigrant to this country. And so a lot of immigrants assimilate to this country. And so I was raised, my K through 12 experience was very white. My collegiate experience was very white. Like that has just been my experience. And so black and white was all I really knew until I was probably a junior in college. And before being a junior in college, isms were a one-off. They weren't systemic. They weren't things that were impacting the way everybody lived. I heard a lot growing up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And my stepfather would say that often, like, well, I came to this country at 20 years old and I had the same opportunities as everybody else. Now, he probably wouldn't say that today. A lot has changed since then. But that was the life I grew up in. And so accountability was very black and white for me. There wasn't this sense of, well, they're stealing because they need it. Do I acknowledge that and understand that 100% now? Absolutely. Did 18, 19, 20-year-old Christina who was catching shoplifters understand that? No.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, I've changed wildly and rapidly, it feels like. So, yeah.
Was there something that happened that caused you to learn the word grace in that space? Was there, I don't know, it may not have been at that job. Maybe you learned grace after that job, right? Like you said, big difference between 18 and 28-year-old Christina. But like, when did the concept of grace come into your life and into the way that you decided to impact and teach others?
Probably after grad school, after I spent 2 years being pissed off, after I spent a long time arguing with folks. I think I learned that like, oh, Christina, did you forget who you were at 18? Did you forget the things that you've said and done, the shitty things that you've done to people, intentionally, unintentionally, knowingly, unknowingly? We have to remind ourselves that, and I talk about this, right? Like you have to give people grace because at some point in your life, somebody was giving you grace, whether you knew it or not. Right. So that's the reality is a lot of us are having an awakening right now. And for those of us who have just arrived 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, somebody was giving you grace. I can promise you that, right? And so whether they loved you or just came in contact with you. And so grace is so wildly important, particularly in the cancel culture that we're living in right now.
Ooh, say it again.
So yeah, I talk about this often, but I think cancel culture is probably one of the most unhealthy things going on right now.
Yes.
So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Christina, what an amazing series of facts to learn about you as we wrap up this call, from sunflower seeds to language, to accountability, to grace. It is just so special to get to hang out with you. And what I'd love to do is I'd love to do a Q&A with you. If people have questions, I'd love for them to throw it in the chat. And so please, if you all have questions for Christina, please put them in there. But if you all are listening on the podcast, I can't thank you enough for tuning in to Diner Talks with James. New episode drops every week as soon as, well, by the time this one comes out, that'll be true. But I'm super excited for you. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the show. That just helps other people get to learn about it and get into the diner with us. So my friends, Christina, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate everybody coming out. I hope more people watch. And if anybody wants to connect with me, please do. I'm always happy to continue the conversation. So.
Hell yes. And podcast listeners, all the information for how to reach out to her will be in the show notes. Podcasters, thanks for listening. As always, if you want to hear the Q&A with Christina, please type in my name, James Orbelata, on YouTube, and feel free to find this episode so you can learn more from her. But appreciate you. Until next time, we'll catch y'all later on the podcast. Be well.
Bye.
All right, Christina, let's see what's going on. So there's first off, a few questions. First off, you're just a damn delight to talk to. And I knew that. But I know Martha asked a question about where you got your shirt.
Yes. Okay.
Somewhere in here.
There were a couple of questions. So Martha asked about the shirt. It either came from Tees in the Trap or
Tees in the Trap.
Tees in the Trap. TEES in the Trap. Yeah. And then the other option is Legendary Roots, ROOTZ. Both are Black owned, and I believe both are owned by Black women. So I've been trying to be really intentional about where I put my money, especially on things that I don't need.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's where they're from.
Love that. Thank you. It's awesome. It is indeed a dope shirt. Thank you, Stacy. Appreciate the love. So we got a cool question coming in from Miranda. Yeah. Miranda, thanks for all the love tonight, by the way. And Miranda asks, what is your first approach to people who show up and don't agree with you off the cuff or put up a defensive front? How would you answer that?
Well, okay. So, I mean, I get this, to be really frank, I don't get this in my personal life as much anymore, just because the circle ain't set up like that really anymore. But when I'm doing work with humans, I'll give you an example. I had a student one time kind of push back pretty intensely in a workshop that I was doing. And we just talked through it. I mean, honestly, here's the thing, y'all, what I don't do is lecture people. And so I ask them questions that put the ball back in their court to think about it. So that's how I always approach things. I think asking questions and asking and asking and asking so you can get a better picture of where that person is coming from is key, right? And so I think that is paramount in getting somewhere to be able to deconstruct from there. So when I get pushback, that is 100% always how I'm starting. How many questions can I ask to help them get to a better place, or at least a place where they start thinking about what they're saying or doing?
Yeah. I love that for sure. Yeah, the classic ask before you advise, because one of the reasons why I do that also is, and this is sad but true, but a lot of people just want to hear themselves talk.
Correct.
And so sometimes they don't even care about your response, right? They're just like, I need you to hear what I'm going to say. And so that's why I ask questions, because eventually the conversation, if they want to have a conversation, they will come back around. But if not, I'm not going to waste my energy trying to turn you from one side to the other if I don't think you're down to have a conversation or a dialogue back and forth. So that's another reason why questions are powerful in that sense.
Well, and here's the thing, right? If I take the time to lecture you, that's a lot of energy that I'm expending. For instance, I was with my homegirl the other day. Somebody said something dumb about COVID and she wanted to go in. And I was like, listen, ask her some questions.
Yeah.
Sis, who she was talking to, had no answers. And I was like, how much energy do you feel like you expended? She was like, really none. I said, yeah, because you put the ball in that person's court to say the dumb, stupid things that they're saying. And you just got to like sit back and be like, okay, well, I guess you don't really have an answer to any of my questions. So I'm going to let you show up in the silly way and move on with my life. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Thanks for asking that, Miranda, for sure. Suzette,
and when she says thanks, G, for clarification, she's not like calling me G. I'm her grand big in sorority world. And so that's my grand little in sorority world. Okay,
shout out. Sigma Kappa? Yes.
Sigma Kappa.
Oh my gosh, adorable. And let's throw it over to Suzette. Damn, I've had a rough month. Walden Cole. Suzette, my heart goes out to you, friend. You're dealing with some bullshit in your new home. And I got nothing but love for you, my friend. Now, let me know if you need a laugh. But Suzette asked a really great question here. How do you make sure that you're practicing self-care? Woo!
And here's the thing. The fact that Dr. Suzette Walden Cole is asking me that when she knows the damn answer to this question, and she's probably laughing right now. She thinks this is funny. So I don't in the traditional sense. I mean, the reality is that for me, staying busy is self-care. Now, there are times when I get too busy, but I think that taking care of myself is doing what I'm passionate about. And so that's what I'm doing. And I also am in a time in my life where it's just me and my dog. Like, I don't have any kids.
Your dog is so freaking cute.
Yeah, he's sweet. He's in his kennel right now because he's a little intense. And he probably would be in here like, hey, everybody. But I don't have any kids. I don't have a partner. I'm not dating anybody, right? So I can be a little bit more absorbed with my work. The traditional self-care that people talk about, or the like romanticized concept of self-care that people talk about, I do not do. I'm not a face mask, get my pedicure on a Sunday kind of person. I think self-care is about having real life conversations with yourself. About what do you need? How are you checking in with yourself? How are you knowing when you need to recharge, when you need to eat, when you need to do the things that sustain life? I don't think the way we have romanticized self-care is like the way I do it. So
yeah, for sure. You're not crushing some silent retreats.
Yeah, no, but I do try to intentionally watch a lot of Grey's Anatomy because that makes me really happy. I am on my 5th rewatch of Grey's Anatomy. And so like
all the way through?
Yes. And I'm like right now in the 10th or 11th season. Like, this is not a game to me. Sunflower seeds and the Grey's Anatomy. That's all you need.
Stacy's in as well. Oh man, we have found it, y'all. Finally, the hot topic, Grey's Anatomy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love that. I think self-care is one of my favorite quotes of all time is from Anonymous. And Anonymous once said that happiness is only a place that you can visit, but the smartest people go there often. I think the same thing applies for me with self-care. Like self-care is self-care is only a place that you can visit, but the smartest people go there often. And I ebb and flow with my relationship with self-care. And sometimes it looks like I started off the show being like, nope, I'm going to buy these fruit gummies and these peanut butter cups from Trader Joe's because who cares? And sometimes that's what self-care looks like, but sometimes it also looks like, hey, on this next phone call that I have with somebody, maybe let me see if maybe they don't want to do a Zoom call and we can just do a phone call and I'm gonna go for a walk, right? Like, and sometimes that's what it looks like as well, for sure. But I know that I personally have been I've been kind of in a funk these past couple of weeks where I just don't think I'm doing enough and what I'm doing matters. And like I'm putting all this energy out and stuff that I'm trying to put out into the world. But I'm like, no, I don't think any of it's going to come back. Am I wasting my time? The worst thing in life is wasting your time. What's the legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden. You never get to see it grow. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so like, what are we doing out here? And so it's in these moments where sometimes I just need to, the answer isn't do more. Sometimes the answer is do less, right? Do less so you can actually focus and so that, you know, things rise to the top that actually matter. And that is something that I'm not always good at. Instead, it's shame of like, no, get it done, put the work in and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I think that's my relationship with self-care is definitely tumultuous. And I know I'm grateful to my partner for that because she'll call me out on that sometimes, which is lovely. So yes, for sure. And yeah, I'll quote Hamilton all day with you, sis.
I love that. I love that for us.
We probably could have probably gone deep into Hamilton and both why it is extremely amazing and also a little problematic. And we could have gone all the way into it, singing every single song. Alas, I threw away that shot. So, for sure. My buddy Adam out here doing silent retreats with bagels and lox. This is how you know this is Long Island on the call. KC's not the only thing here. We got Long Island on the call now. There was another question that came up here. Hang on, where is it? Something about, here we go, Martha. I'm starting to be a history teacher and definitely plan to ask what pronouns my middle school and high school students prefer. But what is something you would want future generations to know about history that isn't told? Woo!
Yeah, I mean,
great question.
About all the really amazing Black people who probably gave us most of what we do today, that have sacrificed their lives and their bodies to give us modern medicine. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think in particular about the Black culture that I would want folks to know. I also want the particular part of life that we are living right now to be told well. I think that if history is any tell of where we're going to be in 50 years, it's that they will pretend what is happening right now did not happen the way that we're experiencing it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think those two things come to mind immediately. But I also think any ability to tell the intersection of Black folks and movements. So about Marsha P. Johnson, the Black women who, through Say Her Name, through Black Lives Matter, through all of those things that we are all learning about, but not realizing that Black women, Black trans women started those things and advocated for those things. I think that's all really important. So thank you for the question.
Great question, for sure, Martha, and really love your answer, Christina, for sure. I'm not seeing any other questions in here. I am seeing your mother, however, claim the dog. So just so you, I don't know if you knew that was happening, but
I mean, yeah, it seems appropriate. She was the first person to hold him, so they have a really weird bond.
Oh wow, okay, there it is.
It's a whole other podcast for a whole nother time. Yeah.
but actually, so yeah, absolutely. Bonnie Shade, exactly. Pride Month, Me Too. Yeah. So many really important things. And intersectionality, I think will be fascinating to see the way that is taught. Is it taught, right? It has to be taught. And one of the reasons why we are where we are is because it was never taught. And so, it'll be fascinating to see what comes out of that.
I mean, if Kimberly Crenshaw doesn't get a really big portion of our history books, it'll be a problem. I mean, she's the individual who has brought us intersectionality, who has brought us #SayHerName. I mean, she's done a lot of work, and most people don't even know who she is. You know, this is present day content. Yep. So absolutely.
Yep. Amen. Amen. Christina, I can't thank you enough for coming through. It's a damn pleasure.
Yeah, this was dope. Thank you for asking me, and I appreciate everybody who's stuck with us.
Hell yeah.
Until now. So absolutely.
People out here, y'all show some love. Smash that heart button for Christina. Throw something into chat. Thank her. Oh, hang on. Oh, geez. Suzette's got one. You know, Suzette's that person in class where everybody starts packing up their bags, and then she's like, well, actually, I just have one more question. Suzette, I'm just kidding. I love that about you. But this is an interesting. This is actually a cool thing to walk away with. So, what is one thing you would want people to do differently tomorrow?
Think about their words. I want you to think about the things that are coming out of your mouth and how they impact people and how they impact our systems. I want us to stop saying African American when we really mean Black. I want us to start saying marginalized when we, want to say minority when we're talking about humans. I want us to say, hey, y'all, or hey, everyone, when we say, hey, guys. I want us to start calling grown-ass women who have hit puberty to call them women. I want a lot of things. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I would want people to do tomorrow. That's something that you can do that is no burden to you. But only actually helps elevate and include other people and their experiences. So,
yes, I love it. I wouldn't even dare to try to speak on anything more. And I appreciate you so much for coming through, Christina. It was such a damn pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. My friends, thank you so much for coming to the diner tonight. I'm James Robolato. We do this every Wednesday night at 9:00 Eastern and whatever other time zones there are. I live in Central Time. I should know what time that probably is. But still, please make sure that you come back. Go to my Facebook page. Just type in facebook.com/James T. Robo and smash that like button so that you know when the next episodes are on. Or check out the YouTube page. Because that's also where we post these, and you can watch it live on either Facebook or YouTube. But we're here every single week. This is also going to be a podcast within a month. I get the podcast dropping, and I'm super excited about that as well. My friends, until next time in the diner, make sure that you keep asking questions, because the difference between small talk and meaningful conversation is a great question. You all take care. Be well.